Okay.
Yeah, start it. يلا احكي.
Okay.
Hi, Elana.
Hi, Eva. Salam alaikum.
Shalom Aleichem.
How are you?
I'm good.
Where
I'm
are
good
you?
now, I would say. I am right now in Beit Jalla, and I'm sitting at the parent forum circle. And Rajai here is showing us around. We can see, you see over there, there's the olive trees, and there's ايش قلت لي هذا؟
هذا النفق اللي بيودي من الضفة التنل.
Here's the tunnel
أيوة التنل
that goes from the Jerusalem.
هناك عندك
Can you see it? And here's the separation wall. Can you see it over there?
Wall. Yep.
Yes.
يعني عليكي.
Beit Jalla is basically East Jerusalem.
It's East Jerusalem. It's Area C.
Area C, but it's not Jerusalem.
It's not Jerusalem. Beit Jalla is not Jerusalem. It's Area C.
It's Area C. One of the places where people can meet from
It's in the West Bank. Beit Jalla is in the West Bank. West Bank, Area C, where Palestinian.
أي النفق اللي هو بعد شو تقولوا لي شاف الشارع اللي هناك الشارع اللي هناك.
Can you see the street over there?
اللي جيلو.
This is Gilo.
مستوطنة جيلو.
The settlement.
نعم.
The settlement Gilo.
هناك الوول عندك الجدار.
You can see the separation wall.
شايف وين الجدار هناك؟ الجدار هناك.
Can you see it over there? It's very far. And maybe do a close up. Anyway, it's a very
South Jerusalem.
Yeah. It's a very telling place to be. We decided in the podcast to go to the field, and you and I went together in different places, including the Nova Festival set up. And today we said that we will do something where you are sitting in Jerusalem and where I'm sitting in Beit Jalla. So thank you for this opportunity to share with you also and explain this. Look at these beautiful olive trees and the beautiful nature that is crying, is really desperate for peace.
So what are you doing there with the parent circle? First of all, what is the parent circle?
Well, this I think is a question for Rajai. The parent forum works actually to bring together parents on both sides, Israeli and Palestinian, in grief, like being present in the pain. And I think one of the main thing in this conflict is how polarized people have become, as if there's two separate sides.
680 عضو فيها.
They have 680 members, and the key is that they're united in compassion for each other and for oneself in the pain that they're going through and choosing peace. I think the main element is that these people have come together to grieve together, united in their grief, but also in their choice that the death of their loved one is not going to justify any violence. Right. And I think as such, this is really important.
Right. It's amazing. It's really quite amazing. And every year they run the joint memorial service on the night of Yom HaZikaron Nakba.
Yes, May, and they just actually held. They held on October 7 also a memorial together about what happened on October 7, not only for the Israeli but also for the Palestinian. October 7 has been a turning point for many, many Jews and Israeli around the world. But what people don't understand and realize is how phenomenal this day was also for Palestinians in terms of
phenomenal, not in a good way, but in a bad way.
Absolutely,
yeah. And so the parent circle is able to pull together that shared sense of humanity, making space for empathy for the other, as well as sitting in your own pain. That it's okay. It doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. I can be, I can be authentic in myself and what I'm experiencing at the same time that I'm also holding space for someone else. That's radical in our context, in the context of our conflict. It's a radical idea. And yet it's so powerful.
Yeah, it is radical. It's radical responsibility, I want to say. And that's what peace activation is all about. Peace activation is about taking radical responsibility and owning my own pain, being present with my pain while being able to be present to the pain of the other without taking it on. Like when we did the Zoom the other day and we had the Israelis sharing their pain around October 7, one of the Palestinian participants didn't want to share because she thought what she would share would be too heavy. and she wanted to take into consideration the pain of the Israeli. And our encouragement was like, nobody need to take into consideration nobody's pain, actually. If we each take responsibility and honor and are present in our own pain, then the pain of the other can also be present next to our pain without us negating the pain of the other and dehumanizing the other. And I think that's what happened often in conflict, is that I need to justify my revenge because my pain is bigger than your pain, or my suffering. It's really competition of suffering, just like in Rwanda, in Burundi, in other places around the world where I worked. And I feel like we need to drop this competition. Nobody's going to win from who's suffering more.
Yeah.
We will only win if we all go in one direction, and the one direction is the field that is out there beyond right doing and wrongdoing.
Yeah, Rumi's field.
Rumi's
So,
field,
so
yeah.
Eva, you know, it's been an intense week. Being here.
Which I would say,
You were supposed to have gone back already and couldn't go
yeah,
back because flights were canceled and because
yeah,
of, you know, extra war fronts and
yeah.
missiles and so you ended up being here on October 7th. We went to the Nova Festival, to the whole, you know, the Gaza border. You want to talk about that a little bit, what that was like for you?
Sure, yeah. It was very interesting to be present in this field, and I actually shared a video on it. It was painful. It was very painful to be in that space of suffering, of collective suffering, and how this suffering was individualized. There were all the photos and name of each of the individual that were either killed or was taken hostage.
Yeah.
And while we were there was bombing on Gaza.
Yeah.
And we felt it in our body, actually.
Yeah.
And what this brought to my field is how the 40,000 or more, 42,000 Palestinians that got killed since October 7, 2023, most of their name we don't even know.
I know.
Most of their faces we don't even see.
Yeah.
And the amount of dehumanization that has happened towards Palestinian in this genocide has been incredible.
Yeah.
And for me to just go to be present, for me as a Palestinian, to be present to your pain, you being Jewish, having gone through this moment of atrocity, and you were sharing with me how your daughter had to run away that day. I was present with you, and I'm able to be present in your pain and your suffering. That doesn't negate my suffering.
Right.
You know, and for me, this is really about seeing what has been happening since October 7, 2023, 42,000 Palestinians killed, massacred, civilians.
Yeah.
And it's painful. It's painful. And being able to be present to that pain and grieve that, without negating the atrocities that had happened, you know, without negating the other, without negating the humanization of the Palestinian, as if we are just numbers, as if our life don't matter as Jewish life. And, you know, I don't want to be in a space of comparison or competition again. And at the same time, just yesterday, a mother of a dear friend here from Combatant of Peace got killed, you know, she survived a year of these atrocities, of this genocide. And yesterday, the army asked them to come out of the school and run away to a safe place. And while they were running, she died from a bomb.
I saw, there's a clip going around about that, about after they told everybody to leave, and then they started shooting. I saw that clip. So sorry. You know, Eva, I just want to say I really, really appreciate you coming to the Nova with me and you hearing the story about my daughter. I forgot that I mentioned that, actually. So thank you for remembering that. I'm like, it's hard for me even just remembering it. I really appreciate you being in that space with me. And I also really appreciate you standing in Nova with me. You know, just having that moment. You know, we haven't shared the video yet. We're still editing it. Hopefully it'll come out like next week. But, you know, it was a really big deal for me to to be able to have that moment with you and to say, okay, we're here, we're acknowledging this awful thing. And for me also, I've been to that area and I know those sounds of those bombs dropping in Gaza, and it's awful. There's no other way to describe it other than people who live there sort of get used to it. And I don't understand that at all. I can't get used to it. And so even though I knew the sound, it still shook me. And it was upsetting to me on so many levels, but also because we couldn't even have one moment. We couldn't even have one moment of just saying, I want to be here to just remember the Nova thing and to just feel that trauma and just be present. We couldn't even just for 1 second be there without understanding that there's still so much else going on. And that was really upsetting for me. I mean, it really took me some time to recover from that. I saw an interview this week with Elana Sztokman. I always pronounce her name wrong. She's the mother of Matan, one of the hostages, and she has dedicated her whole life to trying to get her son back. She's out there. She goes to she changed herself to the prime minister's house. She was a big Likud supporter beforehand. So she gave this interview, and it was a terrible interview. It was a terrible story because she was talking about how right before the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, she went to the Likud party, had a festive Haramat Kosit, a l'chaim. They were celebrating that, and she went there. She's a lifelong Likud member. She went there to talk about her son, who's still a hostage there, and they kicked her out. Right, her own party, her own leaders kicked her out, which is unbearably cruel, unbearable. So she was giving this interview, and in this interview, she was saying, what is happening to our country? What is happening? And then she said, and also, what is happening to the Palestinian people? She said, and so here's a woman who she wouldn't be faulted if all she thought about was her son. Her son is being held hostage, so you can't fault her if she's only going to be thinking about her son. And yet, even within that space, she came out and she said, we should not be doing this to Palestinian children like that. And I thought that was incredible, because if she can do it, if she can come out of that space, of really just wanting the whole world to save her son and say, wait a second, let's not forget about what else is happening to the Palestinian children there in Gaza. If she could do it, we can all do it. We can all get out of, the narratives we've been taught and the propaganda messages that we get from all corners. We can get out of that and say, no, 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 no. We can reject it. We could say, no, we are all human beings. Let's see if we can do something else. Craft a different text of humanity.
It is our humanity, and I do want to precise that it's not only Gaza. It's even when we talk about the West Bank, many people abroad don't even have any concept of what does the West Bank mean. It's Nablus, Khalil, Beit Lahem, Beit Jalla, Ramallah, Tulkarem, where there was massive bomb falling on a whole restaurant last week and killing so many people. And the dissociation, the way we report, and the way the media is portraying Palestinian, the way the media is portraying what's happening, even individuals on social media. It's as if Palestinian cities and individuals and death don't have names.
Right.
And so it's easier then to disconnect and focus on those who have names and places and specific details. And the devil is in the details. If you don't have the details, then
that's what I always talk about with Sila Ben Habib. Sila Ben Habib's book, The Generalized and Concrete Other. That's exactly what she says. She says that the part of the dehumanization of the other is you make them generalized. They don't have details. They don't have context. They don't have names. Exactly. But if you want to identify with someone, if someone's like me, then they have to have a story. They have to have a name and a story and a face and a history and a context. Absolutely. That's part of it. It's a very big part of the dehumanization process is depriving of details. There was an article actually this week in the Washington Post about this, where they talk about the unnamed dead. They talk about how many unnamed dead there are in Gaza because so many people are buried under rubble. They haven't been found yet. Their bodies haven't been found, or that they were hastily buried, and they're not even marked. And also because the entire system has fallen apart, the entire system has crashed. And so even keeping records of names. So like there are so many unnamed dead in Gaza. That's what the article was all about. They were trying to give names to the unnamed.
No,
anyway.
I was last week, I was in Haifa and we went to visit Tantura, and there's a beach in Tantura where the whole beach place, underneath it, there's a grave of all the locals that were killed, massacred in 1948. Mm-hmm. And Israel has built a beach on top of it, of this mass grave. And I feel like right now, this is where we're heading with Gaza. This is where we're heading. We're heading and creating nice beach Riviera, and it serves the purpose not to have the names of the people, just like in 1948. And you really need to be present to the fact that a lot of the foundations of Israel as a state that are falling apart right now is the myth on which the creation of Israel was promoted. And I think that's what we both, you and I, are trying to highlight in our discussions and bring light not on things that are happening right now, October 2024, but also things that happened in October 2023, things that happened before October 23, things that have been happening over the years since 1948 and even before, and linking that the existence of these two people that are supposedly hating each other and not able to live together is based on a myth that serve the purpose of a specific group of people that want to manipulate the people here that actually just want to live in peace, that just like everybody else elsewhere want to have a normal life, family, kids, school, activities.
It's like an artificial us versus them, right?
Yes.
An artificial us versus them based on religion or ethnicity or whatever you want to call it. Whereas the real us versus them is there's us, the people who all want to live a normal life with freedom, all kinds of freedoms and justice and humanity and safety and security, and those who prefer to live with violence, who want to justify violence, who want to justify, the segregation, the tribalism, who prefer the tribalism, who want, humanity to just be people who look like me, who want their surroundings to be people who look like me or people who talk like me. So, it's a whole different, to change this requires changing a deep set of beliefs. And that's really tricky. And actually, October 7th made it harder because October 7th was such a violence-filled day, that there are lots of people who can't see past the tribalism now. I mean, the sense of tribalism has only gotten worse in many corners.
And I do want to bring in here another, like, as I said, I'm here with the organization of the Parent Circle Forum, but there's also another organization, Roots, that is also present here, one of our colleagues that were present with us in the training that I delivered last week, a couple of weeks ago, actually, on trauma-informed approach. And I feel like these two Roots is an organization that bring together actually Palestinian and Israeli settlers. And a lot of people are against this organization or against the settlement and draw the line around that. And I always say, like, Israel is all based on settlement. Like, which settlement do you want to take into consideration? The settlement that started in 1948, before 1948, in 67, in 74, like, where do you want to have your focus? It is one big settlement. And we need to understand that when we unite as grieving parents, Israeli Palestinian, when we unite settler and Palestinian, when we unite various groups that are united in our desire for life and respect to the land, rather than in our desire to be right and revenge, because that's where the government is taking us. The government of Israel is taking us on revenge and destroying any potential for peace, actually. And unless we can come together, Palestinian and Israeli together to activate peace inside of us, so that we can activate peace outside. And when we activate peace inside, then we are not prone to the manipulation of the government and of other individuals that just want to sell us this discourse of us versus them, of us being the noble enemies and us being, and the other that is just hating us and anti-Semitism, and really associating the Palestinian struggle with anti-Semitism. It has nothing to do with that. We are also Semitic people. Like blaming Palestinian being anti-Semit, it doesn't actually make sense. We, as indigenous to this land, we used to live in peace, Palestinian and Jewish. And then there was this whole masquerade around how to create a state based on different narrative. Right. So it's really important that we activate peace through the narrative, respecting the stories and the truth of each of the individuals. And we have more in common than we have in differences, because we're all in this field of wanting to live in peace.
See, I feel like that's also an important bit. Like there are two, in terms of like also time and timelines and history and how we relate to history. So, every time I have mentioned like October 7th, you always say like, oh, it's not about October 7th, it's about 1948 and things like that. And I have like mixed feelings when you say that, because like I agree with you that history is important, but I also feel like the present is really important. For a lot of people, the trauma of October 7th is still very raw, and it's very hard to like even see past it. So for instance, when we interviewed Roni Kedar, and she had been through so much trauma, and like she's still in it, she's still in it. So it's hard to like even have conversations about history, 1967, 94, like that's not, you can't even have that conversation. And I also feel
I agree. Just for me, it's important that we, right now we are living in the past, in the present. We're bringing the past to the present. And so that's why many Israeli are not capable of understanding what's happening in Gaza and in the West Bank and the violence of the settler. They're not able to even comprehend it, because they are in the past, they are in the Holocaust, they are in the trauma of the collective trauma. And so we cannot see beyond this collective trauma, beyond this intergenerational trauma. And so when I bring history, it's not so that we can go back to the past. When I bring history, I'm bringing context to understand that our inability to be present today with the pain of what's happening in Gaza, in Nablus, in Tulkarem, in Ramallah, in Bethlehem, in Beit Jalla, in all these different places, in Al-Mahrur, it's because we are living in Germany. Because for Israel, they are still there. They're not in Israel, the power force that is destroying lives.
Yeah, I actually really agree with that sentiment, the idea that we Jews have to really separate October 7th and the Holocaust, right? It's so, you hear it all the time. Like I hear this week, all week long, like I've been hearing, Holocaust language and stuff. And I keep talking back to it, and I keep saying, no, this is not Holocaust. This is not, we're not in 1939.
Holocaust, it's Holocaust for us. It's Holocaust for the Palestinian. I mean, there's no exclusivity of the Holocaust to the Jewish people. When we said no more Holocaust, we didn't mean no more Holocaust for the Jews. We meant no more Holocaust for anybody. And right now we are living a Holocaust, whether we accept it or not. It is a Holocaust for the Palestinian. I
understand that, but I also think that there are a lot of Jews who are still on October 7th. And for them, October 7th was so traumatic and traumatizing that it's really even hard to talk about this, like to say, oh no, it's not, like
I see that. I hear that. And when we were discussing with it, I see that, and I can be present to that inability to have compassion for us. But I also want to make sure that I have compassion for myself and for my people that are going through. And
that's the whole thing, isn't it?
To really make it said now
is really the whole thing,
to really make a point that our responsibility as Palestinian right now is not to hold space for the Israeli trauma on October 7th. We don't even have space or breath for our own grieving process.
Right.
And the trauma is so huge that we are completely disconnected from our own feeling. And so when you have one part that is overwhelming with their emotional processing and one part that is not even connected to the immensity of the horror of a full year, and you take it, and again, it's not about comparison or competition of suffering, but if we take just factual, a whole year of traumatizing that we're still going on, we don't even know when it will end. Right. And then you put that year and years into one day. October 7th happened that. It's just, what are you talking about?
I understand.
What are you talking about?
I understand.
No?
This article, there was another article this week about the impact of Gaza and like what Gaza looks like now also, and it's devastating. I mean, it's just devastating. I understand what you're saying. It's so immense, the pain, the trauma, the devastation. It's really incomprehensible, and there's no like end in sight. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no thought. This article I read about the devastation in Gaza said that in like northern Gaza, 69% of all buildings have been destroyed, and that there is so much rubble right now in Gaza that if you pile it up in let's say Central Park, like Central Park is like this massive space in Manhattan, in New York, where I come from. So if you pile it up in Manhattan, it would be like 20 meters tall, all of Central Park. That's how much rubble it is. It's 20 million tons of rubble from how much destruction there is. And it will take 8 years just to remove the rubble. That's what I was reading. I mean, and that's what just about buildings. It's not even talking about life, but it's like this type of devastation where you can't even see an afterwards to it, And like you said, also, there are also lots of forces in Israel and the radical religious right in Israel that are saying these things out loud, about, the ethnic cleansing. Like ethnic cleansing language is legitimate in certain religious right-wing radical corners of Israel in ways that it hadn't been before this Bibi Ben-Gvir government. And it's like, for me, as a Jew, these, people talking this way and making these plans as if like in my name, as if like in the name of Jews, I mean, it's absolutely crushing. And I totally understand your reaction saying like, we're in the middle of this genocide. I understand that. I understand why you say that, and I'm sorry that this is what it is. I know you told me not to say sorry, but I feel like
Ho'oponopono. Let's wrap it up. Elana.
Sure. Sure.
Would you like
do you know that this week is Yom Kippur, the holiest day?
I know, yeah.
And on Yom Kippur, it's the day of forgiveness, right? And in my family, we have a custom on the day before Yom Kippur, we do Ho'oponopono. That's our custom. Anyway, so
that's good. We'll do something. Thank you, Elana, for joining me in this, I guess, mission in sharing our individual truth in parallel and showcasing that we don't need to agree on everything. And it's important that each of the narrative is heard fully, without trying to deny or disregard. I think that's the key of our message. So thank you.
And thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Good.